like animal on the London street, Guardian or New York Times or other famous media pick up this issue and there are the broad coverage of the media attention, Mr. Speaker. We believe since this is a new method the animal rights movement is taking, Mr. Speaker, this has much more ability to steer up the discussion, or this has much more ability to make media pay attention to this issue. And for this reason, we believe that this is a very effective way, and animal rights movement should take this action. Thank you.
After the adoption, I'd like to invite the member with the hand.
achieve goal of the animal rights movement. So we have to clarify three things. The first is what does the animal rights movement want, and what is their goal? And secondly, when do we use shock tactics, and why in the status quo this is a not. And thirdly, I explain to you more importantly why this decrease the supporters because of the using the humor in the campaigns to demonstrate animal cruelty. Let me explain one by one. All about the integrated in my speech, especially second and third argument for the opening of this. The first thing about the animal rights movement. What is their goal? The first thing what is necessary for the animal rights movement is to have to get the supporter to the understanding. This is not the recognition, because in the status quo this is already we know the animal rights movement. Therefore, this is not important. This is not important. This getting the recognition. Because of getting the supporter because of the understanding by this process, women become more stronger and stronger. The goal of the getting the good image and the good understanding how to do good act is necessary. And this is simply this purpose. And secondly, when to use shock tactics. In the status quo, we already know and recognize animal rights movement. Therefore, the really necessary thing is not recognition. Therefore, we need understanding. Opening operation already concede this point. Therefore, even though the without shocking, we already know, recognize in that existence. For example, the gay rights movement, because of the past error, this is so minor and unknown. This is a need getting in order to get the recognition, like the shocking is necessary. For example, the gay parade or so forth. However, after that, getting the recognition, this is not necessary to get the shocking for the people. It's necessary, for example, the vital or the discussion to. However, to the understanding, it's the moderate and more become the moderate and more. Therefore, in the status quo, really needed is not just give the shocking. However, the decision reality is in order to achieve their understanding that what is the goal of the animal rights movement, they have to show by the modern way, they have to show what is the need and what is the impact is the for this is the moderate and good image is necessary. Therefore, opening opposition argue that shocking is necessary is doesn't stand. Before moving on the second third argument, before that.
We have already displayed to you that these people, even though they know that we're eating animal at the knowledge level, they're not stepping in or they stop thinking of this problem because they don't have a sympathy, they don't think it from the bottom of their heart. Why can't you say the status quo is already enough?
Because I think that we already know, because even though for example gay rights movement moderately and more, this is how the sympathy and more in my third argument. We have to prove that what is in their part is more counterproductive to this is not getting sympathy. It's more counterproductive. The third argument is why this is a decrease the supporter and why in our paradigm is much more better. Because of the animal rights movement want to the animal rights. However, in the status quo, because in their paradigm, even though the purpose of the because of the shocking, this is for example the purpose of the shocking, like show that this is a so serious thing as a human. This animal rights movement try to show so seriously, horribly, openly opposition concede. This is a so serious thing. For example, not later for the human, because the movement think that this is a meaningless. Because this is a lighter, this is not the huge impact. That is why this animal rights movement try to show more seriously. For example, shutting the people on the right, killing so huge image over as a picture. This is so seriously, so abused for the human. This is so counterproductive because the open opposition already concede that all the people have the possibility to become the supporter. This is not the completely that this is not a supporter or against the people. This is however in their paradigm, the opening opposition already concede this is so totally different people. However, that they say that for example, that even though the black or the white is the different, or even though the children and adult is the different. This is the so shocking is necessary or so forth. However, in uniquely animal and human case, is that arbitrary. All the people think this is totally different. That is why in this case, this is not applicable, and because therefore, even though getting the shock for the people, they cannot logically image. This is so even though the animal have a huge get the horrible thing. However, the people cannot consider like this is so huge for animal because they are totally different like human and animal. Therefore, they cannot think that even though the sympathy is existing for a human, they cannot automatically think that this is so samely applicable for the animal. That is why this is totally cannot in their paradigm they cannot achieve in their goal. However, on the other hand, because of the people cannot consider this is the samely, and moreover people hate the radical way that even though the seriousness is occur, they cannot logical image and more harm because the human are treated serious and crucially because by the animal rights movement. It's meaning the movement give the harm for the people. Movement give the harm more seriously. That is when people recognize these institutions are radical. That is why harm is less understanding because against for the purpose protect the rights or the human or the animal, and moreover that they are labeled the initial image, bad image because of bad impact. That is why for example even though the initial image is important because even though the Al-Qaeda construct the school, however this is the initial image so bad thing, they cannot recognize this is a good actor. Once they think these bad actors, they cannot recognize even though they have the more good way, they cannot recognize this good actor. Therefore, in the paradigm, even though the model, they can certainly get the supporter. However, in their paradigm, they cannot get the supporter because once they get the family, therefore in their paradigm more. But that is why we strongly propose this motion.
I'd like to invite a member of the chair.
We think the target of this debate is a silent majority. They are not opposing the animal rights movement, but they are not actively supporting the animal rights movement. And and in order to attract their attention, in order to push them to the further actions, we think some shocks or some emotional emotional reactions are actually necessary, and that's why we are very proud to oppose. And firstly, I'm going to give you several rebuttals to what entire government side, and I'm going to explain to you as an extension, like why showing these, demonstrating those demonstration using human bodies are actually effective. Opening opposition told you how under statu quo it is not effective, but I'm going to explain to you why this is positively it is effective to achieve the goal of the animal rights movement. But before that, several rebuttals to the entire government side. So closing opposition came up and told you this gain the support from people is the goal of animal rights movement. We agree that. We agree that animal rights movement's goal is to raise awareness and to get support and to prevent animal rights violation from now. And we think but their claiming is that under status quo people know about animal rights movement, people know about animal abuse programs. Yes, they technically know, but do you really know, or can you realistically imagine, what will be to be packed in a plastic bag in the meat box or something, or can you realistically imagine how it's painful to be kept being eye dropped for 24 hours or something? And we think in that to that extent, we think people are not understanding and people are not feeling these programs as their own programs and as their own society's programs. And we think that is the problem we are facing. They're just escaping from the problem under status quo. And secondly, they told you because when people see those demonstrations, because people think that animals and humans are so different or something like that, they would not support the movement or something. So if they think that if they recognize the difference between animals and humans, when they see the demonstration of human bodies or so on, and then how can you think the animals' problems as your own problem just by seeing the animals photos or fox farm or something like that? But we don't think they're just neglecting their own case in the first place. And lastly, they told you because they will be shocked and emotionally disgust, they will automatically hate this group as a whole and will stop thinking anymore. And we think this is just too much lack of logic, right? We think realistically what's gonna happen is of course they will get an emotional shock. That is the purpose of this demonstration. We will shock people and we will make them think about why they're doing and why those demonstrations are happening on the street. And we would like to ask you, when you see the gay's naked demonstration, the naked parade, would you automatically dislike or would you automatically hate the whole entire gay community? We think that is not the case. They're just skipping the logic. So we think what's going to happen realistically is of course you will be shocked, but it's because thanks to that shock, you will have the opportunity to think further, what is the problem of your society. So that's what we are saying. And before moving on, closing.
Even if they were to think about it, the problem is that you're now labeling the group as radical. This makes it harder for individuals to associate themselves with that group.
Just because they are radical, we don't think that's the reason why people will not support them. Of course, people cannot support them to the extent that okay, I will stop eating meat from now. We do not expect people to all people to react in that way. For some people, they will start seeing the news, start paying attention to the news that is broadcasting about the animal rights movement, or they will start thinking about the dogs or cats in the Hokenjo or something like that, or seriously, or maybe you will pay attention to the dogs that are abused in your neighborhood or something. That is what we want to expect. It's not our burden to make all people to react in such a radical way. So let's move on to extension. Why it is effective? So we think that in the context is Tanaka-san told you, under status quo, hard or gross pictures of animals. Just like the UNICEF's black children in the developing country, when you see photos on the train, maybe you don't even think about those children. But we think the fundamental problem of the current campaign is they're lacking the prerequisite to feel sympathy or to understand something as your own problem. We think when you can understand something as your own problem, it's only when you have certain kind of similarity with them. And we think this is not achieved under stress law. So let me give you an analogy. So maybe it's a little bit nasty, but how bearing a child is how shusang is very painful. It is very hard for a man to imagine, right? But what if we use a metaphor, like the bring-in analogy, shusang is painful as much as your balls are kicked by metal bats or something, as your balls are kicked for 1,000 times or something. You can think about it as your own problem, and you can think about you can put your feet in theirs, in females' shoes, right? That is what we want to happen in those demonstrations. And even in the case of UNICEF, the children in developing countries have nothing to share with you. Just maybe you're young or something. But when your classmates try to spend the same life, maybe your classmate eat only 1 cup of soup a day, and gradually they will lose their weight. You can see seriously how it is hard for an individual to live that kind of life. So we think the usage of those metaphors or making comparison with something that is similar to you is very effective to make people to understand some problems of your own problem. That's what we want to achieve. We stand for animals.
In a context where the animal rights movement already has recognition in society, which opening opposition were willing to admit to, the question then becomes, what do they actually need right now? A point which only the closing government clarified in this debate. We said that what they need right now isn't more recognition, isn't more feature in society and media, but rather understanding of what they are supporting, understanding of their cause. The question then becomes, does this plan achieve the aim of that? Now, they seem to assume that we're not going to do anything under our program. That's something that we don't support from closing government, and the comparative is this. Opposition bench is supporting the case by confronting the silent majority with disgusting features to try and get discourse. Closing government is supporting a case where the animal rights movement walks towards them and explains moderately and tries to be humane in doing so, right? We support a case, although admittedly maybe it's not going to be as fast or as radical as they want, but we think it's rather going to be more gradual in its steps to gain strength. And the great analogy is the gay rights movement in how they changed from the gay pride parades and all the flamboyance then to becoming more moderate and how they're now gaining support. We think that's what we're supporting from the closing government, and that's why we are definitely going through, but more reasons as to why we're the best team around, right? The question also needs to be considered is also, when do we even use shock tactics, right? It's not a random thing that we just use because we simply feel like it, right? There is a purpose to these tactics, and that's also something which only closing government told you. The purpose of shock tactics or radical tactics in the first place is to gain more recognition, is to gain more attention from society, and therefore considering the fact that they admitted in this debate that recognition is not something they want in the first place, we don't necessarily think this is the way forward, but rather more than that, we don't necessarily think it's necessary for understanding. Let's look at what they told us about why it's going to be good for understanding. Firstly, coming from opening opposition, they said it's important to change the psychology of people to, when they're eating shabu-shabu at the restaurant, they need to think about the beef and the cow and how it was killed and all that kind of stuff, right? The problem is, the people who are going to be looking and thinking still do not yet have the idea that animal rights is as important as human rights. Therefore, unless you get that message across first, you're not necessarily changing anything, but rather making people think about cows before eating their shabu-shabu, and then after dinner, they're just going to be like, that was a good dinner, right? That's what they're going to end up. So they don't necessarily going to change the way they think. Moreover, the Univ opposition in his review already said that people do not change easily. Therefore, we don't necessarily think that just by getting some sort of discourse isn't necessarily going to change how people act in the first place.
Right.
Their only analysis to support this was that how we sympathize with children, the UNICEF thing. We sympathize with the photos that are being used by UNICEF. The reason why we do that is because we still consider children to be human, people who we recognize as having human rights, the same amount of rights as the individual that's doing the calculation in the first place. So we don't necessarily think that this applies in this way, because the amount of recognition people have towards the amount of rights an animal has is different in the first place, but we don't necessarily think that stands. They said discourse is great, get people talking. We are talking right now. I don't think they're going to stop eating beef after this round, right? They're still probably going to go shabu-shabu. Nothing's really going to change. No. We need to understand that shock tactics may create sympathy to an extent, maybe taking their best case scenario. But we think that more people are going to be rather disgusted, and that's what uniquely came from closing government. The second question of this debate now then becomes, does this shock tactic create more sympathy or more disgust? The debate that's happening in the closing houses, or how are the silent majority going to be affected by taking this proposal? No, thank you. The closing option first told us that, well, it's going to be good because they're going to think about it. Again, same thing, even if they think about it, as we told you from closing government, the moment you label these groups as being radical, the moment you label these groups as being a group willing to sacrifice or willing to use these disgusting tactics to try and get their message across, it reduces the incentive of individuals to try and align themselves with that group. Because even if people might be wanting to care about their rights, they may not be wanting to care, they may not be wanting to align themselves and associate themselves with a group that are willing to do these disgusting tactics. Therefore, when you consider the silent majority as being future supporters or future opposition people towards the group in general, when you have that risk of like shifting the silent majority against you because of that disgust that could come up, we don't think uniquely as the animal rights movement, this is something they should pursue. But they then said in response to that POI that I just gave, they said people will start thinking about it, about some dogs. We already do think about the dogs in that, we already do care about it, we don't necessarily think that this radical extent is necessary just to get people thinking about dogs. We care about dogs because we have them as pets. No. They then said, the closing opposition then brought up the argument that the problem is we lack a prerequisite to think about it. Yeah, the analogy that they gave is the moment you get your balls hit hard, it's going to be harmful, right? If I have my balls hit hard by a metal bat, I'm not going to think about giving birth. I'm going to think about my balls and the bat that just hit me and the person that hit me, right? It's not necessarily going to be related to the action, to the analogy that they necessarily brought up. But I don't necessarily think that this is going to create that prerequisite. But even if that was the case, and even if it did create that prerequisite into creating the discourse at the end of the day, we don't necessarily think that uniquely in a context where the people don't still yet recognize animal rights as being as important as human rights, the discourse is not going to be about how should we treat animal rights or how should we deal with the problem of animal rights, but rather it's just going to be what closing opposition told us, we might have to care about them, and that is going to end that. We don't necessarily think that's a good discourse that's going to happen, yeah?
Well, as we have explained, every human being has the potential to sympathize with the animal because the animal is same as human being in that it has the ability to feel pain. Why can you say that you can automatically assume that these people will automatically perceive these animal rights movement action as radical action?
Because human beings are nasty, and some human beings, they don't really like disgusting stuff as well. As much as human beings have the capacity to care for animals, they also have the capacity to feel disgust, to feel hate, to feel hatred and antagonize things that they do not like. And that's why closing government's extension becomes uniquely important. When we told you about the labeling effect of this flag and how it creates the initial image of certain organizations. We told you uniquely from closing government the problem when you create an initial image, and when that image is related directly to a certain organization or an institution, it becomes inherently hard to go against that image or the label that then exists. I.e. the example that came from Ayaka was the one about Al-Qaeda. Even if Al-Qaeda were to make lots of scores right now, you're still going to think, but they're a terrorist organization. The reason is because that's what they are, and the reason is because that's what people's initial image of that is. That's why we need to consider the labeling effect that this has and the problems that would then cause in order to try and gain the future supporters. And in a context where we're trying to gain as much supporters as possible as the animal rights movement, we think that the team that has the name animal in it will take the debate.
this page should be about comparison, under which paradigm the animal rights movement can be pursued further in society. Uniquely from closing opposition, but paradigm is the only actor who analyzes why using the metaphor or why conveying the animal cruelty by using the uniquely human body is effective to make the people sympathetic or make people more deeply consider about the issue of animal rights movement in the first place. That is a unique contribution from closing up. We are very proud to first. So two questions in this page. Firstly, let me examine the context of this page because the closing gap is dreaming of like the status quo is totally enough to the people are totally aware of the issue of the animal rights movement, but we say that is not enough, and we have to uniquely take the sensational actions. And secondly, why exclusively using the human bodies is effective to make to proceed the animal rights movement in the first place. So first, before that, some points of the to the closing government. They told us radical protest by using human is bad because that is radical and people cannot be sympathetic with it. But Mr. Speaker, we have to clarify that there is no reason for closing up, but in the first place, why becoming radical is so bad, right? Because we say it's not so bad because the protesters who demonstrate the animal cruelty by using their body have consented to read it, have consented to do so by their own will, right? Because they are the members of this animal rights movement in the first place. Uniquely, Mr. Speaker, because animals cannot speak and animals cannot express their feeling and their pain, the humans must be the proxy actor to represent the very harm that are caused by the humans. So that is why even for some people it looks like radical to use the human body, but that is only way for the people to represent the pain because the animals cannot speak, animals cannot do so. So their claim doesn't stop. And also closing up torture because animal rights and human rights are not equal in the status quo. Because that is different, we should not use humans. But Mr. Speaker, this claim of the difference between the animal rights and human rights cannot propose this motion because that is a different debate, right? Because the purpose of the animal rights movement is not to suddenly equalize the status of animals, but at least animal rights movement is intended to increase the respect, more and more respect for the animal issues. But for example, by proposing the ban on animal testing or ban on unnecessary killing or so forth. So that the claim of closing up is not important in this sense. Yes, closing.
Stop misrepresenting us. We never said any of the stuff you just said, right? We don't care if these people who are trying to do this have consent or not. The problem, as Rico admitted, is how the silent majority sees it and the problem of labeling.
So firstly about the labeling, exactly that Ayuki told you. So closing up told us like animal because by analyzing the movement in itself, the closing up told you this animal rights should stop being radical because the awareness or the conscious among the silent majority is enough. But Mr. Speaker, we say that is not the case because the silent majority we analyze from closing up is yes, they know that the existence of the animal rights movement, but it doesn't necessarily mean this silent majority have massive incentive to consider deeply about the issue in the first place in the status quo, right? Because this silent majority are the one in the current paradigm are not influenced by the logical explanation of animal rights protesters, or they are not influenced. But even though, no matter how they see the image of animal cruelty, as long as that is animal, right? Because this silent majority are totally thinking they are animals and humans are different. In this sense. And also closing up told you the people have much incentive even under the current paradigm. The people have much incentive to care the animal rights issues, and the people can treat them in a humane way. But that is not the case because even though we know the existence of animal rights movement, that is uniquely shining because we told you how the in a comparison under their pattern because the under their pattern this animalized movement will continue to show only the animal cruelty by using animals. But Mr. Speaker, we say that is not at all effective because uniquely by using the metaphor or using the sympathetic image or a human body, the silent majority can have incentive. Why they are using such a sensational way and why they have to be so radical in the food space. And